Hello and welcome to another episode of Vintage Lunchbox Reviews, a show in which I review my vintage lunchboxes. It's right there in the title. Today we are looking at a lunchbox that is not vintage at all. There goes the name of the show. But it is a metal lunchbox and it is part of my collection. When I saw this for sale online and bought it immediately. I was a little disappointed to find out that it is slightly smaller than my other metal lunchboxes, but it's still a great lunchbox and I enjoy it. And here it is. This is a vintage looking retro boombox. Now, if you are of a certain age like I am, I grew up in the 1980s. I graduated high school in 91, so I spent the majority of my school years in the 1980s. And let me tell you, there was a time, 1983, 1984, especially even a little bit before when breakdancing started, but right around that time, where everybody had boom boxes. And if you had a boom box, you had to take it with you to school. You had to take it with you on the bus. You had to load that thing up with C-cell batteries or D-cell batteries. You put 6 or 8 batteries in the back. And play tapes until the tape started slowing down, and then you got to switch over to the radio because the radio takes less juice from the batteries. But everybody had one of these. I had one. I took it to school all the time. We listened to, the hits of the 80s, Cyndi Lauper and Huey Lewis and Michael Jackson, all that great stuff on my boombox. And of course, during lunch, you got to play those breakdancing tunes. We would somebody would bring cardboard. We would have cardboard stored in the classroom, take it out there on the asphalt, and so we could spin on our backs, all that stuff that now just makes me cringe. Back then, I didn't have to spend money on going to a chiropractor. Now I do, so a little bit different age. Let's take a look here at what we've got. As you can see, this is the ratio is slightly off. This is a pretty tall and narrow looking boombox, but you get the idea. You've got some speakers. You got all this fun stuff to look at. You got all these dip switches here for equalizer. You got all kinds of buttons. You got more buttons. And this is not a cheap, just printed on metal lunchbox. If you can see, those things are all embossed. So all these little switches, if you run your hand across that, you can feel it. They're all popped up. You've got your woofers, you got your tweeters, you got every little detail that was on these original old boom boxes. This probably has way more switches than the boom box I own. This was a feature loaded boom box. Every boombox had a handle so you could walk through, so it makes sense that there is a handle on the top. I mean, that matches both the theme of a lunchbox, but also of the radio. And then on the sides, we've got some dials here, just like you might have had on a normal boombox, some ports, things like that. You've got these little details, like those look like screws, but those are completely smooth. That is just a printed on graphic, those screws. On the side, I should say that everything on the sides, top, bottom, and back is smooth. It's only the lid that's embossed. So they save a little bit of money there. Here we've got, all your inputs and outputs. Now, I never had a boombox with this many inputs and outputs on it, but you can see it's got these RCA ports, and again, this just printed on there. This is all completely flat. But they did a good job of making it look pretty realistic. On the bottom here, we have some information. We have the company's name. We have a big thing that says made in China, and it says classified novelty. So this is a novelty lunchbox, and I believe, we've got designed for toy. I'm trying to see if there's a year information on there. I see a price, a US of $16. So, cheaper than a vintage one, for sure. On the back, I don't love the back design. Now, I wouldn't want two fronts, right? You wouldn't want a boombox, the front of the boombox on both sides. But, I mean, from far away, you would go, wow, it's just black. It just looks like a solid color. Now, if you get up close and look, you can see that there is a pattern on there. It looks like, like almost like those heat sink kind of ridges. You have the battery compartment. Again, this is all smooth. There's nothing embossed on this right here. And the only thing that's embossed is on the front. But so this is a pretty cool lunchbox. Now, I have one of my plastic lunchboxes that I recently reviewed. And I'm just going to put that on the side, and you can see, if I put it on that side, that the plastic one is a little bit wider and a little bit taller. So this one is just a little bit smaller dimensions all the way around. It did not come with a thermos, and I really don't know if it was intended to be used as a lunchbox. Maybe it was. You could use this as a lunchbox, but again, there's no thermos. If you look inside here, it looks completely brand new because I've never used it for anything other than storing it on the shelf. And you can see the reverse of the embossed part right there on the inside of the lid. So you can see all the stuff that pops out on the other side here. So I very much like this lunchbox. I enjoy it because it's very 80s. It's a very 80s look. I mean, when you see the Boombox is such an iconic part of growing up in the 80s, and something that would have been part of the same era of having a vintage lunchbox like this. So I do really enjoy it. I wish it were full scale and not slightly smaller than the other lunchboxes. I just have to wonder, how much money could they possibly have saved by making it a half-inch smaller and a half-inch shorter than other lunchboxes? But when it's sitting on the row of all the other lunchboxes, you can see that it is actually smaller than the other ones. So, oh, hold on, I got to tune in a radio station here. Change the volume. All right, so I got to adjust these sliders. So yeah, I'm a fan. I do enjoy it. Like I said, I have one other series which we'll get to later where I bought a couple of modern lunchboxes, but I don't normally purchase modern lunchboxes or new lunchboxes. This is definitely one of the few exceptions to that rule for me. So, but the thing about lunchboxes is essentially they're all the same. They're all boxes. They're all 6-sided boxes with handles on the top that are designed to carry food in to and from school or to and from work, right? So the only difference is what makes it unique. And at the end of the day, I like looking at this one. And so even though it's not vintage, it's one that I enjoy looking at and having up on the shelf. So thanks for watching this episode of Vintage Lunchbox Reviews. Tune in tomorrow around lunchtime, and we will find out what is on tomorrow's lunch menu. Take care, everybody.